Okay, I would like to welcome Fabrice Nahimana back onto the SACS campus. Good to have you, Fabrice. We're just going to chat to him a bit about what he's up to today, but I think it's good for him to tell us how he came to SACS and how sort of rugby gave him a bit of an advantage to get into a school like this, and also chat to him about how other boys could possibly benefit from having an opportunity like he did. So welcome, Fabrice. I'll ask you some questions and then we'll go from there. Just a nice informal chat. We've got boys training, athletics in the background. Much bigger group than you probably remember being at school. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Tell us how you sort of came to South Africa and then how you got into SACS.
Yeah, so my journey pretty started back home. And I still remember the day clearly. We stayed in a village, and then just like a regular day that everyone is used to, went to school in the morning, and then our village got attacked. And being at school, we were forced to leave school and run back home. And on our way back, the UN bosses had blocked the road, and then from there is when we met one of our neighbors who was also come running from the opposite side, and she said we mustn't go back, and we asked her why, and she was like, because both our parents had been killed. And from there the UN took us to Uganda in the refugee camp, and that's where we stayed for a while. And from there the neighbor that we left with, she kind of looked after us, and through being there she met us truck drivers, and one day she just said, hey, I'm leaving, and we just begged her if we could go with her because the refugee camp was getting full, which means less food, more disease and that. And from there, I think it's just, I'll just call it a miracle trip, because you just sit and you hope wherever you're going, sitting for days where you don't know where you are, you haven't eaten or anything. And by the miracle of God, we ended in Cape Town. And being in Cape Town, we stayed at the train station. I mean, it's a foreign country, you don't know English, you don't know anyone, and staying at the train station, the lady, I think one day she just asked, because she also had her own child who was much younger than us, and she said, I'm going to the bathroom to clean the child. And she just went and she never came back. And we just stayed there with my brothers, and me being very young, I used to cry a lot. And one day a guy just walked past her, was coming out of the train, walked past us, and he heard me crying, and then asked my brothers what's wrong, but they couldn't understand. And then my brother said to my other brother something Swahili, and then just by the miracle of God, he happened to be a refugee, that guy, and he understood Swahili. And then we explained the situation to him, and there he just took us in, and then he took us to social workers, and from there, that's when they just placed us in the children's home, and it was just a matter of how you make the most of the opportunities.
And then you started playing rugby for Atlantic Rugby Club?
Yeah.
Campbell McCall?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about that.
So being at the children's home, I was placed in Esterplaat Primary School. And Mr. McCraw, when he came to Esterplaat, which had no sport or anything, his aim was to provide this academy to keep kids away from the street, because Esterplaat being an area which was highly noticed for gangsterism and drugs and alcohol, so his whole ambition was to use the sport to keep kids off the street. And me being new in the school, can't speak English and language, and never heard about the sport, I saw that as an opportunity to fit in the school, but little did I know how much I would eventually end up falling in love with the sport. So, and that's how I joined. I went in the first practice when McCraw came, and just what I loved about the sport is the fact when I was at school, because it was in the first few weeks of school, people that you meet, like you would pass around people, but you wouldn't easily communicate with them because you didn't have that confidence, and there was times where I felt like I didn't belong there. But as soon as I went on the rugby field, it just completely transferred everything, because everyone just communicating to you. I remember some of the guys saw that I couldn't pass, and then they'll be like, oh, you pass like this, and then I just fell in love with the fact that that brotherhood and the family just created so much confidence in me that I actually started enjoying the primary school a lot more, and developed the language quick and made it easier for me to fit in.
Yeah. And then so Atlantic Rugby Club. Then you went on a tour to France.
Then I was actually selected to go on a tour to France, but unfortunately I couldn't go because of being a refugee and I didn't have a passport.
So after that you came to SACS in grade 9, beginning of grade 9.
Yeah, and I think after that I always say that that's the transformation part of my life. Then obviously I was given the opportunity by you and Mr. Webner, and yeah, that's when I came to SACS High School, and just again it was all transformation. It felt like my first day at Esterplaat, meeting new people and everything, but then I think the sport played that large part. Just as soon as I got here and I started training with the guys in the team, and then it just completely made me feel welcome. And then the school just in general, being a kid that I would say about 7 years ago, sleeping on the street and getting the opportunity to come here was quite amazing.
Yeah. And your journey at SACS, tell us about how you enjoyed SACS.
I think even still today, it's hard to describe the appreciation I have for the school and how much I enjoyed it. And I always use one of the scenarios. One of the ladies that helped me would help some of the rugby guys, Michelle Skiermans. I remember after being at school, because I was in boarding school, after being here for one term, she came to me and she asked me, you've actually picked up quite a few weight. And I told her, I mean, it's the most food I've ever been given in a hostel. And I think just that was just something that, being given the opportunity, it opened my eyes and gave me so much outside than just rugby. I mean, I know a lot of kids might have taken it for granted, but being able to know you're coming to a school and for the next 5 years you have a meal for breakfast, lunch and dinner, that's something that I always dreamed about. Being able to know that you have your bed every day for the next five years was something that I dreamed about. So it's actually the smallest things that just made me appreciate the school so much, because it's things that I actually never expected to completely have it. And being able to appreciate those small things is what actually the school created to allow me to actually think beyond myself. I think when I look at my life, I never actually had the opportunity to sit down and be like, oh, I want to do this, or I want to be this one day. But when I got here, and as soon as the school created that platform for me with the basics that I always had wanted and needed, it allowed me to actually dream bigger than I would have dreamed if I went to another school. So my experience was the fact that the school just created that platform for me to dream. I think education-wise also, it transferred me. I mean, coming from Esterplaat, where majority of the kids there, you go to high school, you just want to make it till grade 10, and then you leave. But then, as much as sad as it sounds, but growing up in that environment, the more you spend time in there, you actually do doubt yourself in terms of like, maybe I also just need to make it till grade 10 and go. But when I got here to SACS High School, just created that platform where I actually started thinking beyond it. And I think the one key that I always take here is I understood the value of education. Because even just growing up, rugby was always something that I admired. And it's just something that was always, it's rugby, nothing else. But as soon as I got here, the school made me understand the value of education. It made me understand that rugby is actually, you can get more opportunities from education, and it can make your rugby even better if you focus on that. And just the sport-wise, it turned, which I love, is that it turned from that mentality of, I want to do this so that I can make the Springbok, or so I can make province. And as soon as I got here, it transferred where it's like, I'm doing this because I enjoy it. Or like, just like small things like the derby games, where it was now like you're appreciating the moments instead of just playing for the long run, which sometimes was something that would actually take you away from the game, from enjoying it. So instead of me sitting and focusing like, oh, I need to make it so that I can have a better life, though it was like, I need to enjoy the game so that I can enjoy the derby against Rondebosch or against Bishops or small stuff like that. And it just excelled my sport also, just in terms of learning the dedication of rugby. The one thing that also I value a lot is the fact that because the sport is so well organized, you learn all the small disciplines that actually you never know until you leave school, that it's those disciplines that will actually help you get through whatever. I mean, I think the one example I can give you, it's the 400 club that we used to have. I mean, it was just something that completely was a mental battle instead of a fitness battle. But it's small stuff that now when I've left school, I would have certain challenges, but because I've been wired from all the years of the 400 club, it's something that's actually helped me understanding that, you know, like challenges is just part of life. And I think if I hadn't learned that through the discipline of rugby, the fitness, I would have been mentally affected after school in terms of not having the room to understand that the challenges after school, they're just part of life, just like the challenges of fitness. Like it's the required battles that you need to fight in order to get the results, whether it's in fitness or it's in life.
Tell me, Fabrice, your when you left school, you decided to almost give back to society, start your own sort of foundation, and tell us a bit about that.
And then also that also falls back to SACS High School. Growing up in the children's home, I know that one project, Santa Shoe Box, they used to provide them to us for Christmas every year, and that's just something that I used to look forward to. And as a child, every time I got it, I'll tell myself, one day when I'm a big rugby player, I want to do that to another kid. But as I got to the school, I think it was grade 10, then I started noticing that I actually don't need to be a big rugby player in order to understand, or in order to be able to make an impact in someone's life. And I think that's where I started prioritizing and putting a lot of effort into like charity works, and that's what the school also provided, a lot of opportunities to make an impact in someone's life. And that's where I got involved with the 67 Kids project, where we helped a lot of kids with the school uniform and everything. And I think that was the eye-opening experience for me, where it showed me how much I can do with nothing but just taking the first step. Because being a child who you received the shoes for like 5 years from a project where you knew this was someone who was giving their time and their money to put the smile on you for Christmas, and being in a position where I was able to go to Masipumeleli and give the kid full school uniform so that when they go to school they feel like they belong there. It was just an experience that I can't describe, because being able to experience both sides of the field totally helped a lot and made me just more hunger to help people. And I think that's where after school it's something that I decided to actually make the most of it. Something that I totally loved, and something that I felt like I had the skills and ability to make the impact, because I've done so much through at SACS High School. And that's where I created my own foundation, the Nahimana Foundation. And that came in terms of just rewinding back to my journey and saying, I'm a refugee child, and if it wasn't for my rugby ability, or if it wasn't for, and I also compare it to my brother, who also, through being a refugee, he's always had the desire of being a lawyer. Also, he was provided with the opportunity to go study at UCT. And I compared both our situations, where I looked at the stories where a lot of refugee kids don't have the opportunities that I got. And being with the world that we're living in, education is basically the key that can solve anything. And I said, and the foundation's aim is basically to provide other unprivileged and refugee kids like me the opportunity that I got. I mean, it might not be at SACS High School, but just education. And I think that's just the most important. With the fact that this country, where as a refugee child you don't qualify for any bursary or any loans, it's a scary thing. So that's where I came with the foundation. And like I said, I'm very privileged with the fact that I actually did a lot of work, or the school provided me with a lot of opportunity to do a lot of charity work, because after school I've actually managed to do so much than I expected. From partnering up with the Kolisi Foundation, where we just provided a refugee girl. So both her parents were refugees, but she was born here, and both her parents passed away. and she was basically staying. She's 13 years old, stayed with a 15-year-old brother. She was in grade 7, couldn't get into any school because being a refugee, she didn't have anyone that can financially support her. And I got her story and went and just looked for donations and called Siyakolisi Foundation, happily got involved, and then we just managed to get her into St. Cyprian's, which is also I'd say like very nice school for her to go and to create the opportunity for that. And that was just amazing for me, because I mean that's something that as soon as I started after school, I was like, maybe one day in like 5 years I hope to put another child into a very well-developed school. And I mean it just happened quicker than I expected, but then again it just shows you the power of just starting. And also it's amazing because now it's like I basically get to rewatch my opportunities through someone. Ever since, so she started St. Cyprian's this year, and I've just every week I would go and check up to her, and the more stories I hear about her, the more it reflects me to, it gives me that goosebumps of the first day I had here at SACS High School, or like certain stuff that she goes, and it just makes me so happy because now I know that there's also another child that 90% of the time she's gonna walk out of that school and she'll be very effective and will probably help another refugee child. And I think that's just something that I admire a lot, because if it wasn't for the school, then I wouldn't have had the ability to understand the value of the small things like that. So now, from the opportunity I got to a school, I'm able to plant a seed that can basically carry on that chain, you know, like something that, I mean, the school, she might not be in the school, but it's something that SACS High School did start, and it's something that I'm sure it will continue. I mean, it doesn't have to mean there will be 1,000 girls like her that will get opportunity, but if from her experience when she leaves school, I'm sure she'll also have that desire to give that child, another child, an opportunity like that. It can be one child every 10 years, but at least it's something that the school, SACS High School, planted.
So you obviously, you've spoken a lot about, you see the merit of a scholarship coming to SACS, and you would have seen and heard of boys who were on the Percy Montgomery Rugby Foundation scholarship, which sort of part funds boys to come to help them with their fees, and also helps boys who possibly can't afford a rugby tour, helps towards that. So you've obviously seen that the importance of people getting behind these types of organizations and just sponsoring it. So, your organization, how would people get hold of you, for instance, if they also wanted to help out?
So just to add a bit on the Percy bursary, I think also we had a lot of, even me being a bursary, I think there's a few times I might have helped in terms of the tours and stuff, because a lot of people tend to miss that you can get an opportunity, and I think this is what SACS does really well. You can give a child an opportunity to come to the school, but if you don't create the support system around it, then it might be very useless. Because I look at situations where, I'd go on a rugby tour and stuff, and then the school, through that foundation or any funding that they get through that, then they're able to pay for my tour to, let's say, Hermanus Rugby Festival or Johannesburg or anything. And I think that something that really helped as someone being in a bursary, because you don't notice while you're at school, but now that I look back, is that if I wasn't able to go on tours or provided with the rugby kit and everything, then I would have felt a bit left out and everything. And just to answer your question, so with my foundation, getting in touch, I think just what I aim to do is just like, I feel like there's a lot of refugee kids that just want that opportunity to go to school. The one project that I'm also doing is, there's a lot of refugee kids that their parents are unable to pay the school fees. So what I'll do is, no matter what school they are at, I will then raise funds, and then we just pay the tuition fees at whatever school they are, because then that just creates that freedom where a child now can go to school and finish the year without having that continuously school up on their face telling, oh, you must tell your parents they need to pay school fees, because it does affect the child. So to get involved, I mean, I can always leave you with my details and everything.
And we'll put them on at the end of this video.
Yeah, and just get in touch, and can always give you all the more information and everything. So yeah.
No, thank you, Fabrice, and thanks for taking the time to come through to your old school. Hopefully you'll see Mr. Mara and I will be in the gym with the first team, training hard for hopefully what's going to be a shortened season, but hopefully the boys will get on the pitch soon.
No, thank you so much.